Hey, this is Cedric, and welcome to the Bitcoin Matrix podcast. This episode is brought to you by River, the financial institution built for all time. With 100% full reserve custody and zero fees on recurring orders, River allows you to buy and mine Bitcoin with ease. Build your Bitcoin mining fleet today with River. Plus, River offers unparalleled service and functionality, including tax optimization, entity accounts, inheritance planning, and instant buy volume. Dollar cost average with zero fees. Smooth out the price volatility of Bitcoin and get zero fees on your Bitcoin purchases when you set up recurring orders. Instantly send and receive Bitcoin. No waiting, no worrying. Transact instantly and globally through the Lightning Network. Mine Bitcoin and get daily Bitcoin payouts. River manages the end-to-end mining process for you, including procuring, hosting, and maintenance. And for larger investments, River's expert team is here to serve you. With River, your Bitcoin is your Bitcoin. Unlike other exchanges, River builds security into every product and service for your peace of mind. River has 100% full reserve custody. All Bitcoin on River are held one-to-one. River does not use or lend your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin is kept offline in cold storage and requires multiple signatures to identify and authorize a transaction. Buy and build your Bitcoin wealth with a Bitcoin-focused company. Use the link in the show notes to get started and earn up to $10,000 when you buy Bitcoin or miners at River. And for the ultimate in Bitcoin security and design, get the Cold Card hardware wallet from CoinKite now. With built-in sleep at night technology, it's the only dedicated air-gapped, ultra-secure signing device for Bitcoin. And then check out the Block Clock Mini, the ultimate Bitcoin data display. Track the Bitcoin price, see blocks as they are published by miners, and connect the Open Dime to display balance, fiat value, and deposit QR codes on a timeless 7E ink digital display. Damn, this thing is sweet. What time is it? It's Moscow time. CoinKite is a leader in security and hardware manufacturer, established Block 141,000, and maker of some of the most iconic Bitcoin products, such as OpenDime, Sats Card, Tap Signer, Sats Chip, Cold Card, and Block Clock. All dope as fuck Bitcoin products. Don't trust, verify. What time is it? It's Moscow time. Use the link in the show notes for a discount. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, there's a really easy way to show your support and help us grow. Download the Fountain app on iOS or Android now. Follow the Bitcoin Matrix and start listening. You can share your thoughts on this episode by sending a boost, like a payment with a message, and see what other listeners have to say. Or create clips of the best moments. Getting started is easy. You can top up your Fountain wallet with a bank card. Oh, and you can earn money just by listening on Fountain too. It's a no-brainer. Visit fountain.fm to learn more. And now, let's enter the Bitcoin Matrix. Get ready to ride the waves of enlightenment as we plunge into an electric and mind-bending conversation with the one and only Bitcoin radical surfer Jim. We're taking a fresh look at the state of America and the ever-evolving world of Bitcoin in 2023, giving you the lowdown since our last powwow a year ago. But hold on tight, because this podcast is more than just facts and figures. We're diving deep into the ocean of emotions, exploring the turbulent waters of regret, the cleansing power of forgiveness, and the epic quest for leaving an unforgettable legacy. Surfer Jim, with his unwavering, noble approach to life, will be your guide on this wild journey. Brace yourself for waves of wisdom crashing onto the shore of your consciousness as he shares invaluable insights on how to navigate the treacherous waters of existence. So grab your board and tune in, because this rip promises to be an exhilarating ride filled with mind-blowing revelations and awe-inspiring knowledge. Get ready to hang 10 and embark on this captivating journey of exploration and introspection with us.
What is real? How do you define real?
You can't jump into cash. Cash is trash. What do? You get out.
Gnarly libertarian, independent thinker, and truth seeker, Surfer Jim, the Bitcoin radical, is back in the Bitcoin matrix for the 5th time to discuss the state of Bitcoin in America. He's been on episode 17, Bitcoin as Real Estate and First Principles. Episode 22, A Very Bitcoin Thanksgiving with Pierre Richard, Katie the Russian, and Knutz von Home. Episode 76, Bitcoin is Inevitable and Surfer Jim Can Prove It. Number 113, Surfer Jim on the state of America, Bitcoin, and why he's more regularly stoked than you are. Regularly. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Matrix, Surfer Jim. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing good. I didn't know it was 5. I actually thought it was only 4.
Yeah, man. I think you're in the lead. I think there were a couple others tied for 4, but I think you're in the lead now. And I don't have many guests back multiple times. So
yeah, well, I don't know why you keep calling, but I love coming, so I appreciate it, man. I really do.
Well, I think it's a lot of fun chatting with you, and we always get into it, and you have a lot to say, and I think what you get into sometimes is very interesting. It's great perspective. So first, are you still stoked regularly?
Yes, very, very stoked regularly because I'm very optimistic about my future. I'm optimistic about the future that I plan to live and the way I plan to live on this earth around the craziness that's going on, because I believe I see a path forward that's got the least resistance, the least struggles. And I've been working on a new direction for a few years now. Once I started to see, let's say, the handwriting on the wall with the COVID thing, with the excess money printing, the inflation that most of the world is really starting to feel, and so much of what you and I hear is coming down the road regarding like the implosion in the bond market. There's so many things that revolve around the functioning of society worldwide that are not doing well. Governments of the world putting lipstick on a pig to try and cover it up, and the inevitable I think is coming. All the analysis I hear as far as the monetary systems, the economics in the world, real estate markets, bond markets, all kinds of things are likely to have issues going forward. That's a very general statement, but I guess my bottom line is Bitcoin is the answer to so many of these problems. And if you own some Bitcoin, it could be your savior going forward, at least financial savior. And I live in a world of Bitcoin now with Bitcoiners that see what I see. And I am connected to people all over the world in ways I never could have imagined. And so like I see opportunities where the average person wouldn't necessarily see the same opportunities. I believe I could go dozens of places in this world and live on farms with other Bitcoiners and live off the land like immediately. Like that stuff's already out there with people we know that are living that life. And that's not currently my life, but it's moving in that direction: self-sufficiency, sovereignty, that kind of thing. So that's a long answer, but I'm pretty stoked because there's a lot of good coming down the road, and just cool experiences. Because honestly, like this group of Bitcoiners that I know around the world is one of the coolest group of people I've ever met. There's such an alignment, philosophical alignment with everybody, that it feels like a really cohesive, trustable group of people that you can go spend time with and live your life with and around and doing different things. I mean, we're going to hundreds, if maybe more than 1,000 people are going to go to El Salvador, all the way to El Salvador for a party for a weekend around this thing called the halving in Bitcoin. It's just such a weird concept to think like there's a protocol for money that has this unique change in the rule set. It happens at a certain time in history, but we can't predict exactly when it's coming. Well, we're all going to go celebrate that thing in a foreign land. It's like, who does that? Just a bunch of crazy Bitcoiners that want to help the world, right? So I don't know.
Well, it's interesting you went in this direction, because I definitely want to get into meetups and conferences. We just saw each other in Miami, at the biggest Bitcoin meetup in the world. We saw each other in BitBlock Boom, and a bunch of conferences coming up. You've been getting more involved in local stuff, though, or even more person to person. So even spaces online, a little bit more hand to hand than these big meetups that could be impersonal. People can come up, ask questions, and in-person conferences and meetups or smaller conferences. And I struggle with the Bitcoiner term. I don't want to be in any group kind of or have a label applied to me. I think Bitcoiner is a kind of a great label at this point, but I think it's something that will dissipate or disappear over time, because what I really think it is, I don't think there's any thing Bitcoiners really have in common other than maybe seeking freedom, knowledge, and truth, and looking for that answer in this direction. And most of us who've sort of like understood it or try and understand it at a greater level, almost take it on as a calling or a way of life, or see it as the answer, or what people who are looking for truth are seeking. But I think, over time, as Bitcoin becomes just more accepted as money, it is money, but it's just going to become more and more accepted in more and more places. It'll just be money, and it won't be something people meet up over. They'll meet up more over industry or economics or politics or health or anything else. But meeting, with Bitcoiners is a bit of a celebration, and it is a connection in real life with like-minded people. Maybe I'll put it that way. So what have you been up to? What are you doing with Gary Leland on Twitter? And I really want to get into what you're doing on Thursday.
Oh, all right. So Gary Leland, who runs BitBlock Boom, the conference, he's going to have his 6th conference this August, and I'm actually helping out run the conference this year. So that's one of the things that I've decided to do, is get a little more involved. I'm actually working at that conference. I'm working at the Pacific Bitcoin Conference, and I'm working at the Unconfiscatable Conference in Las Vegas in December. That's Tone Vase's event. And in all 3 cases, I became friends with all the people, from going to these events. And now I'm going to help work behind the scenes, because I like helping. I don't know, I can bring value. I'm a hard worker, and I don't know, I just fell into it. They all were, let's do it. And so I'm a worker now. But regarding, meeting people and whatnot, it's interesting. I often think about this, what you kind of alluded to, the idea that we meet to discuss a protocol for money. One day, nobody's going to do this. It's just going to be everybody's money. And they're going to think that's the oddest thing, that they used to have conventions around the money. But we need to do this to spread the word. There is a thing called Bitcoin out there. It was a grassroots underground movement at first. Very few people understood what it was. Little by little, one guy talked about it. The next guy said, what do you mean? What is that thing? And little by little, the knowledge of what Bitcoin is began to grow. And what some of us have seen, I think you would agree with this, is that this is a really important discovery for mankind, right? Everybody benefits if they own Bitcoin, and they understand what it can be used for. And they understand what they're owning in terms of the volatility in its, let's call it its current fluctuation in purchasing power, right? So everybody knows that the value as it relates to fiat currency fluctuates greatly with regard to Bitcoin, from having no value 14 years ago to having as high a value as 69,000 US dollars almost 2 years ago, and now hovering around 30,000 for a single Bitcoin. That seems really crazy, but there's a lot to unpack there. This is a thing called money. It's a protocol for money. Money is a unique object on the planet. Most people don't understand it. They don't know where it really comes from, any of its history. And so to think that there's a movement behind promoting the newest money on the planet seems like an odd thing, essentially. And yet there's enough knowledge, there's enough people now that it's worth it being a movement, because there's enough people that recognize the faster this thing gets adopted, the faster a lot of the world's problems get fixed. And that helps everybody. Problems that are completely outside of our influence, because we have no control over money. And some people do. And by taking that control away from them, by adopting a monetary system that they don't control and that they can't stop people from using, and therefore, you and I know that control of the money eventually controls people. And when they can't control the money, they can't control the people. And so that changes the game with regard to world politics and economics and all kinds of things that, where we see some people benefit by controlling money and many people suffer. And it's clear to anybody who studies it, most people out there, they don't study it. They don't know to study it. It's certainly not taught in public schools because the government doesn't want you to know how they're screwing you over with the money. So, what was the original question that started me off on this?
We're talking about
I
meetups
apologize.
and getting together and but at the heart of it though is
I drifted way off on that. I wanted to mention something. I apologize for cutting you off just now, but I did want to mention meetups and getting together with people. I have found. Hello.
Yep.
All right, sorry.
You got a little echo now though.
Oh,
it's gone.
My cord came loose on my mic. Sorry about that. So what I was saying was that you find it became this thing where once I learned about it, and I think many other people the same as me saw it as so important. It felt important to get together with other people, talk about it, reason about it, figure it out, learn, exchange ideas, make sure I wasn't crazy, right? I think we all go through like a lot of different stages. And so meetups and conferences became a thing. It's a weird concept to think one day that'll all go away when everybody uses this as money. But for now, we're trying to get the adoption going. So you had mentioned Thursday night, because earlier in our conversation before you hit record, we were talking about a lot of things. And I mentioned that I'm doing a meetup. And so where I live on Long Island, millions of people around here, almost nobody knows about Bitcoin. I attribute that to a fairly high income, average income level of a lot of people on this island. Like anywhere where there's wealth, there's plenty of poor people that serve the rich people, right? And all kinds of menial jobs and whatever. But I think overall, there's generally a lot of wealth. It's not a cheap area of the world to live in. So there's a lot of money sloshing around.
Old money,
and
too.
I think because we're so close to New York City, we're so close to all the services, goods and services that anywhere in the world needs. New York being such a giant metropolis and port of entry for so many things. We don't suffer for much. We don't, like there was no shortages of anything during COVID here. Not a single. I didn't see an empty shelf anywhere. Almost none. Maybe a couple, but random. It's almost like, if anybody's getting the shit, we are, because the demand is big around here. Like, so people don't feel the pain yet in where I live. I don't think people really see what's coming. So I can't stand the fact that I got nobody to talk to. So I set up a local meetup. We're going to meet at a pub on Thursday. I probably have at least a dozen people showing up, which is very cool, because that's a nice little crowd of people to talk Bitcoin with. And if more show up, great. We'll see. I would love to be able to do it regularly and build up a community out here like I see so many other cities have done, including New York City, where I go once a month to BitDevs meetups that get well over 100 people every month. And it's really cool. And it's a total educational thing where there's presentations that everybody sits in the audience and listens and asks questions. I'm doing just a little social thing because most people say that's how you get the ball rolling, and if it gets big enough, you bring in a speaker, you do a presentation, you move the event to somewhere like an office space or whatever. So we'll see. For me, it's a small contribution to the adoption of a protocol of money on this planet, right? Pushing the notion that everybody should own Bitcoin. 100 years from now, they'll laugh. That guy had to convince people to use this money that we all think is money now. But yeah, it's my little contribution to the promotion of something that I think will solve a lot of the human problems that exist out there in the world. And if you wanted to dive into why I think that, I'd be happy to, but you probably got a list of questions, so I'll let you continue.
Well, I love it. I was just recently on Long Island. Are you doing this out east or in Nassau County?
I'm doing
Suffolk?
I'm doing it in Western Suffolk County, actually. So kind of like literally the middle of Long Island.
Yeah, awesome. Very interesting place to do it. Yeah, I agree that it's very business as usual on Long Island. I'm from Long Island. I know that you have all sorts of people from Long Island that live there, and even just lower income people, of course. But like, it's mostly well-to-do. It's a very expensive place to live. It's summer. It's very vacation-y right now. It seems like things are popping and moving along. Prices everywhere are like what I think of like Vegas and Miami. It's insane, or New York City. But I love the idea of these local meetups. We just started one here in Sarasota, a couple guys here, and we're already getting 15, maybe 20 people at a meeting. The more the
Nice.
local, the better. Um, you mentioned, talking about Bitcoin, Bitcoiners getting together. 20 years ago, I never told my friends or, people I was trying to hang out with, like, or meet, like, about a checking account that got a really good rate. Uh, or a great
Right,
savings
exactly.
account or a
Never.
CD I knew
Nope.
about or the stock. I didn't go to every party and talk about, the stock pick of the week or the year or even the decade, really. So it is fascinating how this kind of overcomes this, but I think it's more about an idea. I think about it
It's
in
a
the way
different
that,
level.
well, I think
This
about
is
it in the way that
good.
people don't talk about America or the idea of America today. It's America. And some people discuss where we are in the project, but but early, very early in the project and before, the revolution, people got together in bars and salons and talked about what this could be and what this idea could be if we put it together and execute it and get
Yeah.
enough people on board. And, there's a big enough network effect around the idea.
Mhm.
And the idea then exists, and less people contemplate the idea and just live their lives under this, like fish in water. So, I want to get into sort of the state of Bitcoin, the state of America, the idea, it's sort of a moving target, but where we are with these things. So to kick it off right away, though, kind of a big one, but maybe not the latest one, but ordinals. I gotta hear what Surfer Jim thinks about ordinals.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So ordinals are essentially no, all right. So the ordinals protocol is new. Uh, and for anybody who doesn't know, a real quick overview, which I believe is correct, is ordinals is a protocol outside of the Bitcoin protocol that references the Bitcoin protocol. The ordinals protocol is run by some people outside of Bitcoin. It can be altered, changed. It can be, I suppose, shut off. Maybe there's some decentralized nature to it if it's ran by enough different people at this point. I'm not sure about that part, but basically, it was one guy's interpretation of a way to order every single Satoshi. So for every Bitcoin, there's 100 million Satoshis in each Bitcoin. And uh, a guy named Casey, as far as I understand, made a decision to say, well, I'm going to say that this Satoshi within this Bitcoin is the very first one, and this one here is the last one, and everything in between is in order. And when it gets spent and broken up, here's how we'll track it so we can keep track of where did number one go and where did number 10,000 go and where did number 100 million go into the next, piece of a Bitcoin, and then where did it go after that? Where did it go after that? And so it's a way to say, where is this one Satoshi from the day it was born? Where is it now? And then the idea was to, if you could get a hold of it, right, by pointing to it, by being able to say, well, there it is on the blockchain. I will buy it, or I will. Maybe that's not a good way to put it. The idea is that you can get control over what is considered a specific Satoshi. Bitcoin is meant to be fungible, so this really doesn't make any sense. And within the Bitcoin protocol, you cannot distinguish. But in the ordinals protocol outside of Bitcoin, they're deciding, they're claiming that you can track each Satoshi, and you can then link information to it, because the Bitcoin protocol already allows you to link information into a transaction. There is space in the way a transaction is built and sent out onto the network and eventually included in a block that allows for you to put random additional data that can be viewed in different ways. If you have the right software, you can see what it is, whether it's a document, whether it's a photograph, a video. There's all kinds of stuff you can put into Bitcoin transactions, but that's been the case for a very long time. It's just recently that somebody decided they were going to create a protocol outside of Bitcoin that was going to be able to track the Satoshis in such a way that they would become essentially non-fungible. They would become unique because something is attached to them, and you could then track the attachment through the blockchain and actually sell it to somebody else. Now, I don't believe, from a practical perspective, that actually even happens. I'm not technical enough to be able to explain it, but I don't believe you can actually tie a piece of information to a transaction and then transfer the information to another transaction, because every transaction is just a it ends up being part of the blockchain. It becomes an immutable record, so the transaction with the attachment, it always stay in the position where it was originally put within the blockchain. It's always visible in that position. Whether or not you believe you've bought the Satoshi that was originally connected to it, it still sits on every copy of the blockchain in the very same position where it started the day somebody put the attachment on it. So to me, it's a silly concept. You can't really own it in the same way you can own a UTXO, because in order to even claim somehow that you own it, you have to reference the ordinal protocol outside of Bitcoin, which has nowhere near the network effect or the immutable nature that Bitcoin itself has. So you can all day long, all value is subjective. So you can value it if you want to. People do. There's a whole ecosystem building around this thing. I personally don't see any value in it. And I actually think over a long enough period of time, most people will abandon the project, realizing that you can't really own an attachment that was supposedly connected to one Satoshi that is now in your wallet. I don't believe you can. To own something, to truly own something, means that nobody else can get it, see it, steal it in any way. And I think Bitcoin is about the only thing, it's the only thing I can think of that you can actually truly own. Anything physical in the world can be taken from you with force. Anything that you supposedly legally own, like your house, can be taken from you through the court system and other human beings deciding that they're taking it, essentially. I mean, the mechanism of government is just other people deciding, sorry, we make the rules, we have the guns, you lose. Sorry, we're just people, but we don't care. We decide, we rule you. I can't stand government at most levels anyway. Yeah, so I don't know. I hope I answered your question. I
did.
Clearly, I ramble.
Oh, I'll take it a little further, though.
Sure.
What do you think about the competition for block space? The impact on transaction fees, but really this idea of block space being used for things other than just moving the Satoshis, but inscribing and scripting, legacy, historical documentation.
Yeah. All right. So for a long time, there's a protocol called open timestamps. It's been out. Peter Todd developed it, and it is a way to timestamp information into a transaction that gets put into the blockchain. And what you can do is you can prove that this digital document existed on this day, and that's about all you can prove. You can't prove that other different versions didn't also exist. You can't prove it did exist before that, even though it could have existed for decades before that. But what you can prove is it existed that day. But depending on how you put it in the blockchain, so in open timestamps, it's done with a hash. So you have to be able to take a document, hash it, make sure the hashes match up. But there's a challenge in that, because in the future, when you want to prove that this document is the same one that the hash, is in that transaction from 10 years ago, in order to recreate the hash, you have to have the exact same digital file. And if even one bit gets corrupted, you won't get the same hash. And there's a lot of ways that bits and bytes can get corrupted through years of trying to store a digital file. So there's a challenge all day long with proving anything is really still in the blockchain. Certain other ways to store data in what's called a JSON file, I think it is. And excuse me, again, I'm not a technical guy, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but some of this data can be read directly out of the transaction if you understand how to process it, how you run it through the right algorithm or whatever, and you can just extract it right out. You don't have to have the original, hash it, and then see if it matches up with the hashed item that was put into the transaction. So there's different ways to put stuff in, and there's different ways to get stuff back out. I do see value in that. though, to answer your question. I see value in the ability to put other information that was provably existed on that day, and so I'm all in favor of people, experimenting and using the protocol within its rules, even if it increases the size of the blocks, even if it, increases the size of the mempool, the outstanding transactions that are waiting to get into blocks, and stretches that out, even if it increases fees. All of that is, if it's within the rules of the system, I really have nothing to say. If the people that run this network worldwide can agree to change the rules, because we all came to the realization this sucks and it's going to hurt us, and we can convince everybody to change, which, as you and I know, is what's good about Bitcoin. It's almost impossible to change it. Then I can't complain, right? In the end, I got to just go with it, and as long as everybody's fitting within the rules, it is what it is. It wasn't necessarily meant for transaction fees to go up because of adding extra non-monetary data into the protocol. I don't believe that was anybody's vision early on. But it was always assumed that transaction fees would cover Bitcoin mining someday when the block subsidy went down low enough. And so, a lot of people got real upset that the transaction fees went up all of a sudden now. It wasn't supposed to go up now. What do you mean it's up now? It was supposed to be years from now. They're getting enough. They 6.25 every block. That's enough. They don't need transaction fees right now. So people got upset about that. But hey, sorry, you don't run Bitcoin. Nobody does. So you just got to go with it, man. I sat back. I got a little mad at first. I was like, these idiots are wrecking Bitcoin. I'm like, all right, Jim, relax. It's not that bad. And you just gotta sit back, like TikTok next block. Bitcoin isn't broken. Nothing happened. It keeps going every day. I've had plenty of transactions go through in the last couple of months when ordinals were clogging up the blockchain. Yeah, it cost me like $2 instead of 20 cents. Oh man, it's not going to break me. I can afford the $2. Luckily, I say that laughing, and that's some would mock me for that, because there are people in the world that really can't afford $2 to send some Bitcoin transaction. I get that. And there are certain, if you want to take it and get a little serious about this, there is concern about the ability to use Bitcoin at the base layer someday in the future, when transaction fees are, for some people on this planet, a week's salary, to do one on-chain transaction. And that will cause a complete change in the way Bitcoin, by necessity, would need to be used if everybody on the planet's going to use it. And many people, I'm not making this stuff up. I didn't come up with any of this stuff. Second layer solutions like Lightning, and now something called Arc, and who knows what else people might come up with, but ways to move Bitcoin around that doesn't break the rules on the base chain, but allows you to move Bitcoin in some other way that you can still trust it's Bitcoin. The supply is not getting altered, and you have a certain level of control over the Bitcoin itself. And of course, I'm alluding to custodial level solutions where it's a trade-off of, it's not yours on your hardware wallet in cold storage, blah, 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 where the only way to move it is an on-chain transaction. And so, yeah, I can't figure out, I don't know enough to know what is the likely way this is going to play out in the future. It's certainly not a non-issue. I don't know how big of an issue it is, because there's a lot of smart people that see it and are working hard to make it so that it won't be a problem. And I guess if I'm going to take it one step further, I would say that we currently live, and we are a species that has to live by trust. We have to. There's no choice. It's impossible for you to test everything in the world. You can't test every set of stairs that you have to walk up. You just have to trust they're going to hold you, because you've done 10 million stairs in your life, right? There's a million things you can't check. You have to just decide, I trusted the people who built this bridge. I'm going to drive over it. Shit, that shit falls and people die because they just believe they didn't have to worry. But that's everything in life, right? So if one day some people using Bitcoin are using it through a custodial, just like a bank now, that might not be the worst thing in the world, because the bank at least can't inflate the supply. Maybe they could rug you, but maybe we get to a world where integrity gets a little higher and honesty actually gets a little higher. And maybe the systems are built in such a way where you can't get rugged and they literally can't take your money, even though they are holding it on your behalf. Maybe there's things that haven't even been invented yet for the Lightning Network or some other second layer solution that would make it so you can trust these people. You would have heard about this thing called Fediment, right? So again, another way for, let's say, a group of people, a small town, a church, or some other group that wants to manage a large pool of money amongst themselves, where the on-chain transactions are done by the pool of people, and then they transact with a different layer of Bitcoin that could even be given a different name outside of Lightning. It could be community coin that everybody in a certain community is using, and they're all cool with that because they all know they can go back to the bank, the Fediment in that community that runs that system, and go, look, I want to peg out of this. I want my Bitcoin on my cold storage. I'll pay the fee. Get me out of here. I'll move it to Texas. So, unless it's in Texas. Yeah, I think that's likely to happen when the value of moving transactions is too high, that like the amount you want to move is less than the cost of the transaction or something like that. That's where it's certainly not economical. That'd be silly. It should always be just a fraction of the transaction, or otherwise it doesn't represent good money anymore. If half of the money goes to just giving it to somebody to pay something and you lose half of it in the transaction, that's absurd. So I don't know what the ratio would end up having to be for it to be economically usable as money. Is it 1%? Is it a half a percent for everybody on the planet? To move your money, it costs you a 0.5%. The network won't move it without that. I don't know. Maybe everybody can handle that one day, and there's a way for some functionality to be built in that allows for all that. I'm certainly hopeful. I think that will happen probably beyond my lifetime, because I just think that scenario takes a couple generations to play out. That's my thinking on that.
For sure. That was really awesome and way to kind of explain things. I want to move over to Prime Trust. So, but
interesting. Prime.
I want to ask you about Prime Trust, but also just amongst the backdrop, you're talking to people in meetups, real life, whatever, about Bitcoin, and we're at a point now where price action has been a little different over 4 or 5 years now than maybe expected, or can demonstrate the power or uniqueness or number grow up technology of Bitcoin. And, last summer we spoke, price was about the same, but in between last summer and this summer, price dropped a lot. And before that, we had 2 big highs, but not the blow off tops maybe some people expected. So maybe, in this backdrop, maybe a lot of people are disillusioned or don't understand the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, or see Bitcoin and crypto as just another sort of, go up, go down type thing, or I don't know. And now Prime Trust, which is not new or not all, but I mean, what do you make of all this? And, what's your take?
So my first thought is, what was I thinking when I started learning about Bitcoin? And I heard the people who were before me made projections about where it was going. And then, that guy Plan B came along with his stock to flow model and his chart. We were supposed to hit 100 grand by now. And all these people call on certain prices by certain dates for years now. Honestly, I think everybody was way more optimistic than the market proved them to be. And too many people got out over their skis too far. And sadly, you brought up Prime Trust. You mentioned them a few times, and you and I both know they were a custodial service that were holding people's Bitcoin on behalf of other companies like Swan. We both know that Swan used them as their service provider, that I would send Swan some money. Swan would acquire the Bitcoin on my behalf, keep their small commission, and give the Bitcoin to Prime Trust until I asked for them to send it to me. And of course, because Swan believes that everybody should take custody of the Bitcoin, they set up automatic withdrawals. They made it so that once you figured out what to do, it was fairly automatic. So the way it worked was, for every purchase, it stayed locked up for some period of time. I honestly don't remember, a couple of days, a week, I forget, some amount of time, and then you could withdraw it. So it sits there and it's like it's yours, but it's not available yet. And as soon as you get the message it's available, they send you an email. You can take this much if you want right now. Push receive, push the button. And it's as simple as, yeah, give me the money, dude. And you can plug in your hardware wallet, whatever it takes you to verify that it's gotten into your, into one of your addresses, right? So when you set, with Swan, you set it up in such a way, you provide them with what's called an XPub, and they can create addresses for you, and you can verify them, and then you can say, yeah, that address is one of mine. Yep, send it to that, and you can watch it show up, and it's as easy as it gets. And so I was never exposed with a lot of Bitcoin in custody with Prime Trust simply because Swan made it easy. And I know the ethos of Bitcoin, don't leave it on an exchange, right? When I first bought Bitcoin, it was from Coinbase. After a while, I realized, holy shit, I got to get this off of there. What if they go out of business? And, they're still here, but my Bitcoin's been off of there for a long time. So it's unfortunate. Those people that ran that system, they did something with that Bitcoin because they came up like $80 million short or some crazy big amount of money. They were missing something, and people were like, uh-oh. And Swan, they knew somehow, they got the word, I don't know when, and they started making the switch out of Prime Trust. I got whatever last bit I could get out of there, and I ended up with a small portion stuck that wasn't withdrawable, that moved over to a company called Fortress, which is now their custody provider. Oddly enough, though, the same guy who started and then quit from Prime Trust started Fortress. So I'm not really, that doesn't give me a warm fuzzy thinking that they're hanging out with the same guy. But I don't know enough of the ins and outs. The Bitcoin they have for me is a small enough amount that if I lost it, it wouldn't ruin my life. But I certainly still want to get it. I want every Satoshi that I purchased. So right now, I'm waiting to hear back from them. They're in the middle of resetting things up, and unfortunately, the dust up rippled through their infrastructure. And because I live in New York State, it was already hard enough. It's already hard enough for any company to do business in Bitcoin in New York State. I don't know how they did it, to be honest. I don't know how Fold did it, but I was able to get accounts at both of these companies where it's nearly impossible. Like, I had a referral code for both of these, and everybody I sent it to, none of them could sign up because they're in New York, because the regulators caught up with these companies and said, no more, don't sign up, but I guess they let everybody who had already signed up stick around. So I was in Swan and I was able to buy, and no problem, but nobody I ever sent the link to could use their service, because as soon as they tried to sign up, the IP on their computer showed where they were. So when they switched their custody provider, all of a sudden they're probably refilling out paperwork with New York State, and they're saying, okay, well, nobody in New York State is allowed on your new system or whatever bullshit, because I can't do anything. I can't buy any Bitcoin. I can't do anything with my Swan account right now. And they're promising us it'll be fixed soon, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Some, they're not entirely sure. I don't believe it's their fault, because I just know that this is bullshit politicians, magic words on paper, restricting people from being free. I think it's absurd at my age that I can't buy something that's recognized all over the rest of the country as a product, an asset, a thing that I'm allowed to purchase. The people in New York State make it impossible for that company to do business here because some reason they think they deserve to have more rules put on them or some other bullshit. I can't stand it, Cedric. I honestly, this is one of my pet peeves about how a small group of people can set up a bunch of rules that force everybody within some arbitrary geographic boundary they have to abide by, or they'll send armed enforcers to prevent you from, opposing this special rule. It's just disgusting. It actually blows my mind when you look at the shape of the states of New York and of the United States. You just look at all the shapes and you think, how the hell did these people figure out where to put these lines? Did they walk up and down mountain ranges deciding a little to the left, Bill? We're still in a straight line from where we were 500 miles ago. Like, they did this 100, 200 years ago with the most crude surveying equipment, and somehow they decided this is where the freaking boundary is, whatever. It's all too much for me. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, man, get me back on track. Sorry.
So I want to zoom out a little bit from there. We're a year away from the halving, but, we're, and the halving come a little close, a little sooner or a little later, and we're about a year and a half or a little shorter than that away from the next presidential election. And I think that some Bitcoiners do. I mean, there's always a little something about the coincidence, and I don't believe in coincidences, that these line up. But we've come a lot. You and I, we talk about politics a little bit. We talk a little bit about America and the idea of America and where we are with this. Let's call it the COVID era, and how that compares to, say, something like Vietnam. But what's been, I think, the most interesting thing about this presidential season, or whatever you want to call it, and I think of this now, this is truly my second presidential cycle as a Bitcoiner, but I really think about it as my third, and probably all of them. I've probably been what a Bitcoiner is: a truth seeker and a freedom seeker and a knowledge seeker. But 2016 is kind of when I broke with that system. It was before I kind of came to Bitcoin and understood what Bitcoin was. And that was kind of the break. And then you had the 2020 election, and now we're going into 2024. And all these years, I mean, feel like epochs. Like each year feels like 4 years. I mean, so much is happening, especially in the digital era. And I really started tuning out in 2020. But I'm fighting with this because I don't like. I like politics, but I don't like what we call or consider politics now. The theater, the ancient art of politics, and how it's used to divide us, and what it's become at the professional and the theatrical level and the national level, and really what's boiled down or kind of come into all levels, and how much it's divided us, and how we probably have more in common than we see in this political world of ours. But something that's kind of really interesting has been RFK, I'll be honest. And so I'm not excited to vote for anybody. I'm not saying I'm going to vote for anybody. It's been interesting, and I don't like everything about RFK, and I probably have some issues with RFK, and he's a politician, and all those things. But I think it's been fascinating, especially his linkage to, his family, which on one hand has got a lot of, I don't know how to, scandal and allure, and probably one of the first family of America, probably, in a lot of ways. I mean, you may be fighting now with the Bushes and Clintons over that. But before that era, I mean, I think, it was Camelot.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just, I mean, his uncle and his father were assassinated or murdered, and I guess his cousin died in a crazy plane crash, and his family has a lot of power, and his insiders in a lot of ways too, though.
Yeah.
So what do you make of the presidential election and the backdrop of the halving, and maybe some of the candidates and what's happening here, what's playing out?
Excuse me. All right. So RFK and Vivek Ramaswamy and probably even DeSantis a little bit, at least have been more vocal and supportive of Bitcoin. And that alone is a good thing, no matter where they stand any other way on their politics.
So is the mayor of Miami and mayor of New York, and I don't think they're aligned with Bitcoin.
No, that's different. No, that's definitely a little different. The guy in New York he's a clown, in my opinion. That was him just. That was just
it's vote seeking
flavor of the day for that guy.
Yeah.
All right, fine. Yeah, call it what you want. But the point is, he's not a Bitcoiner. Nothing about the way he operates is aligned with the ethos of people that I know that are involved in Bitcoin and want to see it succeed. Right. Essentially, the reason I care about Bitcoin, and I think most people that understand it care, is because it takes the power of money out of the hands of some people. Those some people are politicians. Essentially, the Fed and the people that run government are in collusion. All the central banks of the world are in collusion with government to control money and, by default, control people and literally steal wealth, either through direct taxation, where they hire and pay people in that same money to have cushy lives and great pensions and all kinds of fancy gadgets to play with in order to be loyal and go out and rough up me and you, their neighbors. Like, it's just so bullshit, the whole thing. So to be in alignment with Bitcoin is to be totally against the system that upholds the current control of money, right? So all the enforcers, the entire court system, every level of political power is influenced because of money. Everything, media, everything, the medical industrial complex, food, all over the world, all of this stuff is influenced by the people who control large amounts of money. And because huge additional amounts of money can be interjected anytime, you can just steer wealth all over the economy to exactly where you want it to go. And certain people have figured out how to do that. And with a Bitcoin system, that manipulation goes away. The ability to buy out everything goes away. Everybody's ability to have spendable money is limited to their ability to accumulate that money first, right? If you were born into this world someday 100 years from now, and nobody just gives you some money, the only way to get it is to go work, right? That's currently how most people acquire any amount of money. Plenty of people inherit money, and other people just find a way to earn it. And they earn large amounts of it because they've been able to multiply their efforts through machinery, through inventions, through all kinds of ways that are actually a fair way to make a lot more money. Or you're a recording artist and you are so creative that you sell millions of copies of a job you did once, and you just keep making money over and over and over. Now all of a sudden you have a lot of money. When you and your friends and a whole bunch of other people can get together because you've earned a lot of money, and then you could pay somebody else who can write magic words on paper to direct stolen money in your direction, right? Because you're in the solar business and you're going to get all kinds of credits from the government because you're producing solar panels. You're a pop star, you made millions, and you've decided to get in the solar power business. So you've invested in a company who pays lobbyists to pay politicians so that your company can make extra money that you wouldn't have otherwise made in a free market. So all of this bullshit manipulation starts with the people who say, please vote for me, right? Back to your question, what do I think of these people? They all want power, believing that if they get it, they can fix things. And in some cases, they can improve things. In most cases, they can't do much. And most of that has to do because most of government doesn't change over, and most of government is not voted in. They get a job and they just stay there through administration after administration. They're the people that are running the show. You think that when the new guy becomes president, he knows what to do when he gets there? He doesn't know shit. He doesn't know where anything is. There's people pointing him all day, every day. This is where this is, Mr. President. Oh, yes, let me show you how this works, Mr. President. And they learn how to be the president by everybody who's already there. They're not in charge of shit. They're figureheads, most of these people. So I would love to see somebody that cares more about Bitcoin, like Robert F. Kennedy or Vivek. They've taken the strongest stance I've seen as far as in favor of Bitcoin, but for no other reason other than I would love for them to do certain things and like pardon people like Ross Perot and Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, and people that have been persecuted for no reason other than they expose crimes of other people. It's so disgusting how it can work. And again, these people like Biden, he's one of the worst criminals out there. Fauci, Gates, these people are mass murderers. They all deserve to be hanged, as far as I'm concerned. I hope this doesn't ban your podcast, but these people are literally mass murderers, as far as I'm concerned. Biden's one of the worst criminal presidents I've ever seen. It's just in our face all day. I mean, for them to not be able to know who brought the cocaine into the White House, I mean, they could take fingerprints off of it. Like, how do we not know the answer at this point by now? It's an absolute obvious cover up, and the media is paid off. It's such a joke. So here, I can ramble, obviously. Man, I feel bad.
Well,
I feel like I'm rambling too much. But look, just to bring it back, I'm not a fan of politicians at all. If the guy gets in there and dismantles government, he's my freaking hero. But they're probably not going to do that.
No one's going to do it.
No, because
I don't think anybody
pretty much can't do it.
I don't think. Here's my issue. I'm excited about. There's something about RFK that's very interesting, and I think a lot of that though is there's the art of media behind him as well. I mean, I think the lifting weights viral video was very effective, but I question why he's running as a Democrat. I know his family is a Democratic family, but they pretend they don't accept him and his views, and they play a different part of the party. It's just Teddy Kennedy ran and was played a non-consequential role in the 80 election when he didn't have a chance of winning. But I think it's important. I think sometimes people run to siphon votes. And with Kennedy and all these people, he's not a lifelong politician, but like I've looked into him a little bit,
Yeah.
and I was curious. So who is he as a person? And the first things that I came across, and were he talks about he's had a lifelong issue, I guess, with extramarital affairs and what he calls his lust demons. That's neither here nor there. I don't think that should be part of presidential politics, but we're looking, it's kind of, we're looking at all these people, and I think they're all part of the same. That's why I'm trying to point this out. And all these candidates are welcome to come on the show, but I don't know if his cousin was recently, not recently, 10 years old, was convicted of murdering his 15-year-old friend, this girl.
I didn't know that.
And RFK has defended him his whole life. Before he was convicted, and even after he's framed. It's just very interesting to me. I'm looking for integrity. I'm trying to say if there is really
I don't have the time
fighter, a truth fighter. I don't have the time either.
Yeah,
but
so I don't know this about him. So thanks.
But this was interesting to me because even with like someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who I thought was compelling, and she spoke at Bitcoin Miami. So right away, I just Googled these people. First thing in her Wikipedia, I'm going to pull it up now because it's just
she was in the one of the young global leaders or something.
No,
right?
that's not even what. That's not even the half of it. Let me just. This is so. I was standing there while she was talking. Me and my friend, loving what she's saying. I love what RFK says. I Googled her, and I went to her Wikipedia page, and let's see, military service. So she's years of service, 2003 to the present. This is according to Wikipedia. I didn't verify. Yeah. She's in the United States Army Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Unit. Operations Command.
Okay.
I mean, literally in the PSYOPs unit.
Yeah. That's
right?
funny. I mean, that.
No, seriously, right. You didn't know this. No one fucking knows this.
So look, on a Wikipedia I'm automatically skeptical of Oldman. She's a surfer. I could have easily fallen for a cute surfer chick, that looks like she's a libertarian, but I don't trust any of them personally.
And I don't want to be an investigative journalist. Yeah, well, I don't want to do any of this.
Well, now you know why I don't vote, because it's a waste of time anyway. Because you don't, the vote. In my opinion, all the votes are essentially.
Do you know who RFK Jr.'s wife is?
No, I don't.
Okay, okay. I hate to do this.
That's all right, dude. I don't give a shit.
Do you know who his wife is?
No, I don't.
She's the wife that played the wife of Larry David on Curb Your Enthusiasm. All right, he's married to a Hollywood actress.
Okay, whatever. It's all fake. They're all acting.
It's all fake. That's what I'm saying. It's all stage.
Yeah, well,
like
you gotta want to look. If you want to be in a politician, be a politician.
I don't want to be a politician.
No, not you. I'm saying to want to be. You gotta want to act. You want to get up on stage. You want to be able to present. It's part of the whole fucking thing, man. You got to take voice lessons. You got to learn to speak. It's a whole fuck, man. It's not real.
So okay. I mean, does this election matter?
No, I don't think any of them do. Honestly,
I think I agree, but I think it matters in the sense that all
right. So wait, now, let me take that back. To say it doesn't matter is a little bit extreme, because I think the country has gone significantly downhill since Biden took office, and that's not to say I liked Mr. Trump. He's not my type of person. Ever since I ever heard about the guy 30 years ago or whatever, he always seemed like a shyster playboy kind of dude to me.
Like a mobbed up
like
New York developer.
And I not an honest guy. I never thought he was an honest guy ever. So to see him as president, did I trust him then? Hell no. Only thing I could say is that it felt like,
but I don't think he's outside the system. I think he's
not
part
outside.
Of the system.
He's totally in the system.
I think he's part of the game.
Look, if he was outside the system,
each other.
Hillary Clinton would be in jail. If he was outside the system and actually
I think that they couldn't have gotten they needed him for the tax breaks and to push the COVID agenda. I think if they had
matter. They're all manipulated. Cedric, once you get there, he's probably got dirt on him like the rest of them. They all have fucking dirt. You don't get to be president unless they let you. I'm sorry. Like there's people that won't let you. There's certain people that can't work in Hollywood. They're not allowed because they don't have any dirt on them. They'll spill the beans. They'll expose whoever because they don't give a shit. Guys like Mel Gibson that have trouble getting work there, right? Because they never got paid off. At least it seems that way. I can't know, but you hear the stories. I mean, the internet allows us to hear shit we never would have heard before.
Yeah, well, that's true, and I'll get to that in a second. But I do think what's interesting or compelling about RFK Jr., I think he appeals to the respectability of America. And I think the people who are playing this game, dividing and conquering us, want to restore some respectability to the American project.
Yeah, that's a fair statement.
And I think he links it to, old America or so the first family. And I think he's cutting through in a way, the way Trump cut through Twitter. He's doing it through, I think, podcasts and viral videos and appealing to sort of more America's good, honest nature and strength. And I don't know, it's interesting. I think he has a real shot at winning it.
I don't think so. And you know why?
Well, I think this is what I'm going to say in the same way no one thought Trump had a shot at winning.
Yeah, okay.
And that's where I'm going to put it. I think he could be that candidate where he doesn't have a shot at winning. You're right. But like he's somehow, I think, going to catch a spark. That's what I'm saying there.
Honestly, I would not be unhappy if he won. And one of the main reasons I think is one of the main reasons he'll never get elected, and that is his potential ability to expose the CIA for killing his uncle and possibly his dad.
Unless he's a part of that somehow. I don't put that out of the question. I think they're all in on it.
Is he paid off to keep covering up his father?
It's not about money. It's not about money. And I don't want to get into...
What is it about? His own life? He'll find himself dead if he tries?
We don't know the Kennedy's part
I think
in
is
the whole
problem.
play. We just don't know the Kennedy's part in the whole play.
All right.
And so I don't know what... Right. Nobody knows anything. And so... I don't know what he knows and how he feels protected and safe in this situation. That does not add up to me.
All right. Well, think of it
so
this way.
It doesn't make any sense other than there's something I don't understand that he would feel safe in this situation.
Well,
and so then I think he's in the big club, and whatever they did or didn't do to his family, or however his family is involved, because his family was mobbed up. Joe Kennedy was mobbed up just like the Trumps were maybe mobbed up back in the day.
I agree, but
the mob might be the CIA. I have no idea what's going on.
All right. So I'm no political expert by any means. It does seem that JFK did not want perpetual war, was duped into the invasion in Cuba and made to look like a fool by his own military and CIA and FBI and all the rest. And I have seen evidence that leads me to believe the CIA could have easily coordinated and created the whole situation. So literally our own government took out their own president because he was going to take them apart. There's memorandums that he wanted to scatter them to the wind. So because of the obvious corruption he saw once he got there. And I think if RFK gets in that position and has the ability to see it, now he has to deal with, do I expose every bit of it all the way up to the people that are still alive today in government that knew this 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and have said nothing the whole time? Because they're all, what's the word? They're all, culpable. They're all culpable. They're all have had a hand in continuing the cover up and not prosecute people. So let's say you knew who did what, but you were not involved. You're still culpable because you kept allowing this dude to stay out of jail who should be in jail because he helped kill the president. So if RFK gets to the facts, they'll kill him before he ever gets it out there. If there's enough of them still alive that they're worried, if the facts lead to enough of these people going to jail that already still work in the government or are retired on a pension from the government or connected in any way to military industrial complex, any of them, if they still got money and still got power, he won't get very far.
That's why it's a forcing function to me. If he does what he says he's going to do,
forcing function.
If he does what he says he's going to do, they're going to kill him. So there's no way.
But only if he gets elected. If he doesn't get elected, they might let him live because then who's going to go in the White House?
Then he knows he's not going to get elected. It's a forcing function. There's no way he would run with the chance of getting elected knowing they would kill him.
unless
Like
he
unless
really
he
wait a
has
minute, hold
some
on.
sort of
Unless he
unless he has
honestly
some sort of
thinks,
power trip or death wish that he's
yeah,
never exhibited
not a
before in
death
his
wish,
life,
a
not
power
being a
trip,
politician.
that he thinks he can do it. He just thinks he can do it somehow. He may not even see the clear path. He's like, no way, I'll get people around me to protect me. I don't know. Maybe he's got such a big ego. He thinks he can get to the bottom of his uncle's
I think
murder
that's
and
the
prove it.
allure of RFK
But
Jr. I think that's what we want to believe. I don't know.
I don't think he can. So I don't believe it.
Right.
It's nice to want that. And he may actually fully want that, like literally in the deepest of his heart. He wants to do this. And he might be the only person that could have even a chance to do it. If Trump gets back in, he ain't doing it. He already had 4 years. He could have did that. He could have, Hillary should be in jail.
Well, like you said, I think if you are truly trying to buck the system, which I'm not saying Trump was, the first 4 years, even if you're trying to do not buck the system, but do what you want, like you just, there's a lot of structure and infrastructure that's hard to kind of push against, I'm sure, in your first 4 years. That it really you probably need a second term to do what you really want to do. If you wanted to go against the system, because you have to know the levers, the buttons, and your enemies and how to deal with them. And but
I would say that part of the problem is in the first 4 years, the most you can get is 8. So if you don't rock the boat too much in 4, you might get the second 4. And you might be able to do something. So that makes every president timid to do anything in the first 4. And that sucks, because that's a shitty incentive right there to not actually go full force in the first 4 years because you want the next 4. Trump didn't even get it anyway. So what the hell? It's like, I don't know.
So does any of this?
There is no red party. There is no blue party. There is just a purple party.
Okay, great. But there is an American country, and there is a Russian country, and there is a Ukraine, and there is a Europe, and there's a Russia, a China. So on some level, this stuff matters externally, maybe. Whether it's one party controls these two parties, and no matter who we vote for, they're going to have their outcome. But these things are going to affect other pieces.
The way I see the bigger picture, when you bring it back like that, the wider view, I think all countries are controlled by the central banks of the different countries, the EU, which is a big organization.
Are there any countries not under their control that have a material wealth and resources, like Russia? Maybe is Russia not under their control? I'm asking.
The Russian people are under the control of the Russian central bank, right? Isn't there a central bank in Russia?
But is the central bank owned by all these other, owned in the same way that the Federal Reserve might be owned, or the European central bank?
Honestly, I don't know, but my sense is yes, that there are people outside the country of every central bank that are help to control that central bank. Literally, the Fed in the U.S. that controls the monetary policy is owned by private businesses and corporations outside of this country. Like there are foreigners that control our money,
or just people that don't care about what country they're in. They just move.
They don't care. They just want to make money by controlling money, and that's what they do. They literally make the most money. And look, by controlling the money, by being part of the mechanism that controls the money. Let's say it that way, because they don't fully control the money. If you get right down to it, government's involved, right? It's a back and forth. We need bonds. You buy the bonds. Whatever they do, the whole mechanism. I can't even explain it all. I just know that the Fed doesn't just wake up, the people at the Fed don't just decide to make new money. They have to talk to government about it. But between them, they're just people. They're just some people. And that's the part that the average person doesn't stop to think about. Everybody in government, every police you see, every judge on a bench was a little kid in diapers shitting themselves once. They knew nothing. They couldn't speak. They were spanked by their parents. They were ridiculed by their teenage friends. They tripped and fell. They're so far from perfect. Nobody is. They're bribable. They're corruptible. They're dishonest. Some of them are the worst, because in politics you kind of have to be dishonest to survive, which is a really sad incentive. And so, I think there's a lot of honorable people that go into many of these professions and literally are forced to conform to a system they didn't create simply to get a paycheck and go home and be with their families. And they don't realize they're perpetuating the most evil shit. All the enforcers, the military, and every police force in this country is indirectly supporting the United States government, Joe Biden, and his crackhead son. Every one of them indirectly is helping that sustain itself. They don't want to see it that way, but they're all part of the cog of the wheel of the state. And at whatever level, I don't care if it's town, village, county, state government, or federal government. They're all part of an intertwined mechanism of government. People who believe they have the right to control everybody else around them.
So do you think this next election matters in the sense of like whether we go into more war over the next couple of years or less war, or how this affects Bitcoin? Or because at the beginning of the show, I mean, you're optimistic. I mean, I know you're optimistic about yours, not the world. Yeah, no, that's what I'm now. I'm asking about the world. Like, I mean, do you think things are going well? Do you think this election matters? Do you think this election is different than 1992 Bush Clinton?
No,
round one?
No, because in the end,
it seems like more clown world means more clownish elections, more extremist politicians, more extremist everything. Like that's sort of Luke Mitchett's postulation that like that or maybe and maybe Joe Burnett, or I'm maybe forgetting the guest who mentioned this, but it's like every election is getting weirder and weirder, and every candidate is getting more extreme because the fiat is getting more degraded, more debased, more extreme. Like in terms of
look,
it's not the same because it's getting worse.
Yeah, we got a bartender.
Maybe it's getting worse.
We got a bartender as a New York representative in Congress, a girl that was a bartender, and she's now in Congress making millions of dollars and policy decisions that affect millions of people. There's no way that girl, right? Yeah, there's no way she has the skills to do what she's supposedly doing up there, and she'll stay there for a career, for the rest of her life, not producing anything of real value and just siphoning money out of the system because she's cute and they like her, and she'll keep getting voted in.
Well, the point, I think the real point there is some people get into Congress for not their congressional skills, if you will.
Oh, yeah, totally. I don't think that's what got her in.
But I think if I got into Congress tomorrow, I might be effective with no prior congressional or political. I don't mean effective.
Effective, in that's a tough one.
Not effective in the sense of getting things done, but effective in being able to contribute ideas and have something worthwhile to be a part of this process.
Yeah, so
if it worked that way.
You know who Bruce Fenton is, right?
Who?
Bruce
Fenton?
Yes,
I know the name, yes.
He's running for Congress. I don't know what branch of Congress in New Hampshire. I think he's still running. I'm not 100% sure. And he's a libertarian Bitcoiner. He's been a shitcoiner too, as far as I'm concerned. But overall, if he got elected, just his presence would inevitably have an effect. So I guess to back up to your question, I do think that every election matters potentially. Let's say potentially, because for every new voice that gets heard.
Yeah, I'm not asking you whether you should vote or whether it's worth your time.
I know that.
But does it matter? Does it matter? Does it affect us?
It might. It could. and I say it could only because it's possible that a sound voice or a voice of reason could sway some other people to look at things a little different and maybe cast a different vote, and policy might just change for the benefit of the people. I think when that does happen, it's very slow and it's very minimal. I don't think major things change for the benefit of the people, especially if it takes away a benefit from the wealthy class and the people that are in control of stuff. And so it's really hard, no matter how good you are, no matter how reasonable and logical your argument is, or how great your proposal is. If enough people are not making money off of it, you're not getting a new bill passed or an old one rejected, or rescinded. And so I don't care how good you are, what you say, whether or not you like Bitcoin or anything else. Even if you're president, you're very, very limited in what kind of effect you'll be able to have on this giant behemoth of a machine that is the corporate mechanism known as government, with all the agencies and the thousands of different employees and middle managers and people that disperse money and keep budgets for these different offices and have to, call up to the next level. We need another 20 billion next year to run our little office over here that we're looking for, cracks in asphalt that we got to go fix because we do the roads. Like whatever stupid department needs X amount of millions every year. It's way too big and convoluted for any one person to get in there and really fix all the real inefficiencies that are going on. I mean, we all know that government spent 10 times as much as private industry to do anything, right? Because they got just too many absurd rules about safety harnesses for every stupid last little thing, that everything takes 10 times as long and everything has to get inspected 18 more times instead of just once. And like, I mean, it's great and all, but it's like so overkill. And it's like government is in its own way trying to protect everybody from every last little thing because they don't want to get sued or something weird. So they try to make a rule for every freaking thing. I mean, like OSHA rules for safety on job sites are off the charts. Plenty of them are great rules, but they're rules that nobody needs to put them on paper. We're going to follow them anyway because we don't want to die, right? Like, but other rules are just absurd, like the amount of stupid orange fencing you have to put around a job site that people could just cut with a freaking nail clipper and walk right through the shit because it's plastic. I mean, there's so many stupid rules that government forces you, and it just adds money into things. Whatever. It's so inefficient. Government sucks at every level, and they're just sucking money out. How many people I heard growing up like, dude, I'm getting a government job, man. Why? Because they pay really good. Why? How do they pay really good? Because they steal lots of money from the people. I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, that's how they keep their constituents happy. But
exactly. Yeah. It's a big racket, man. Whatever. Because they control the money. Bitcoin fixes this.
Leading up to RFK Jr.'s speech at Bitcoin Miami, maybe it was the night before, but the conversation kind of turned to like, would you be happy with a Bitcoin candidate for president?
I don't care. Wouldn't
but I said that'd be horrible. I don't want to
wait. That was the guy's platform. Bitcoin is my platform. Is that what you mean?
Major part of the platform, or any part of I don't think that's good. And I went over this. I
don't think that would win an election right now.
I don't think it would win an election right now. And I think it would just put a target on Bitcoin's back. I think people would get angry, resentful. They would see it as a power grab. They want to be rich. They want to make this legal tender, all these things, right? So I don't see it as any good. But when RFK Jr. spoke, not the Bitcoin part, but the free Ross part. And I said, whoa, like, I don't want a Bitcoin candidate right now. I want a freedom candidate. I want a candidate about truth. I don't care about Bitcoin legal tender or Bitcoin should be, whatever. I don't want a Bitcoin candidate, but a free Ross candidate.
Yeah.
And I would include in there, Ed Snowden and Assange, but really Ross for me.
Yeah.
That was powerful. And he didn't say he would, pardon Ross. He would say he would consider it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even getting into just RFK, just the notion of if a candidate said to me, like, or said to, America, like, I'm for XYZ and freeing Ross, like, that would be the single issue that I would actually think I would spend my time and energy taking away from my endeavors, my pursuits, my life, my local life, my family, my entrepreneur pursuits to go vote for.
So
Cedric, that would
you got me with this one, because I'm sitting here thinking about this and I'm thinking,
because I would do anything to free Ross in terms of what I could personally do.
If I thought
I would sit outside his jail cell, whatever.
I have to agree with you that if I thought that my one vote had the chance with enough other people to put one guy in office that literally would get Ross out as soon as he took office, I probably would go vote too. As much as I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I don't know if they're counting my vote. But my point is, if they sold it to me as my vote counts, and we could free Ross by voting for this guy.
Look, I agree.
I don't know what this guy had to say to not make me vote for him or her, but I would vote for a free Ross candidate. Period. That's when because at first I'm like, I don't care about a Bitcoin candidate. I'm interested in RFK Jr. I think the story is just amazing. Kennedy is very interesting. But I don't care about Bitcoin candidate, but I care about a free Ross candidate.
I agree with you, because there's a human being sitting in jail who doesn't deserve it.
He didn't do
anything even close to the sentence he got. Not even close. Even if he committed a crime, 10 years is plenty of time.
For Amazon has killed more people with rat poison of their own volition and not than so.
There's so many other people guilty. Look, there's plenty of people guilty of way worse stuff. that are not even prosecuted yet. Like Hunter Biden should be in jail. Everybody that went to Epstein Island should be in jail. I mean,
Well,
it's
I don't even
absolutely
think what
blows my
Ross did
mind.
was
No,
egregious.
not even close. Not even close.
Like
He didn't
of
he
punishment
didn't
worthy.
physically hurt. He
I
didn't
think he
physically
broke
hurt
some
any
laws.
humans.
I think he
Well,
broke
wait a minute.
some
Laws are
laws.
just magic words on paper. They don't
Right,
mean
that's
shit.
my point.
He
That's
didn't
my
hurt any physical people. He
I
didn't steal
right.
anything from anybody, as far as I know.
He didn't do anything
So,
to
like,
anyone. It was a very
literally not directly that
right.
somebody like was hurt physically or lost money directly, not that I know of. He was accused of a lot of things, and he supposedly ran a marketplace that other people did illegal things on, and so by default he
Right.
did something illegal because he
But that happens on
facilitated it.
many legal
But
marketplaces like Amazon, Google,
beyond that, it's
Craigslist.
just a group of humans who've taken power and have said, we made rules, we don't want, you're not allowed. In a free world, he'd be allowed to do that. In an unfree world, which we live in, because nobody's free, because governments all over the world stop you from doing whatever you want, period. It's
Right.
just that way. And there was nothing so egregious about what he was doing. As a matter of fact, many of the things sold on Silk Road were simply illegal in one country, let's say,
Right.
like
right.
a prescription drug, whereas the rest of the world thought
or a
that's
non-prescription
absurd.
drug, doesn't
Or
matter.
whatever. And and you just wanted it because you wanted
It was
it.
all
Or-
voluntary. That's the point.
Yeah,
It
and
was
that's
voluntary.
exactly the
That's
point.
the fucking point.
Nobody was forced to use Silk Road,
Right.
and for
So-
the most part, most customers were satisfied, as far as I heard. Like nobody was even getting ripped off on Silk Road. Now there's a handful here and there, but that happens everywhere. So that doesn't make Ross a bad guy or anything else. But anyway, getting back to voting and a potential candidate, literally, it's only because of one human being that might be saved something that's completely unjust. I would consider casting a vote if I really thought it would make a difference. I would have to believe the candidate had a chance of winning already.
Right.
And
I understand.
like I would try to rally everybody I knew.
It's not
And
like me
I'm
running.
so against voting. Yeah, again, if I didn't think the guy could make it, it would still be a waste of my time. So I wouldn't even bother. But it's always whoever knows. Just because I've decided I think he can get voted in doesn't mean I'm even close.
If I truly thought my vote was being counted in the digital sense that they count these things, and I don't get a paper receipt and I can't prove it out. So there's
no way to ever know. This
right.
is the thing.
But
the way
but
the
if-
voting works,
I
you
would
can't
vote
trust
for a
any of it.
non-winnable candidate on the free Ross basis to register and tally my vote if that ledger was real.
If you knew it was getting tallied, yeah.
If I knew it was getting tallied, I would want to make that. That would be just the hope. It would be worth my time and energy and effort. That one issue, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's just a very interesting thing to think about, and I'm happy there are some candidates out considering that. And that was the thing that really struck me the hardest about his candidacy when I took away the historical drama and the intrigue and just really what could really happen at a practical level.
Yeah.
Because he could be a Bitcoin candidate. It doesn't mean that they're going to let him pick someone to head the Federal Reserve and the Treasury and the SEC that understand and support these things either. But a pardon can come right from one person.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, that's about the only good thing that that a president could pardon somebody in jail unjustly. And if you thought that they would, trying to get him in office for that one thing could be a noble cause, regardless of what they may or may not be able to do in any other part of our economy or the system itself. Yeah, I get it. I didn't think of it that way. I was basically never going to vote ever again. I guess now I have to hold out the possibility that I might actually cast a vote someday. Maybe. We'll see.
Be interesting. So then,
go ahead.
I mean, turning, what's going on in France? Is this a real big deal? Is this?
I can't tell, dude.
No one can tell, right?
I can't tell because I can't know what the truth is, what I see on the internet. I just can't know. I hear stories from both sides. Like people go to France right now on vacation and they don't see any of this stuff. So is it in Paris? Is it an outside, small town? I don't know. I see riots. I see all kinds of crazy stuff, but who knows if it's even real? Half of the stuff could be CGI, AI, created
Test
stuff
footage,
nowadays.
sure, anything
misconstrued. So it's getting even harder and harder to know what the real truth is on anything in this world, let alone the state of a country on the other side of the ocean. I wouldn't trust anything unless I had a friend that was literally standing there watching it and streaming video back to me of what they're seeing. I don't know. I just don't know. Either way, I do sense, again, this is just from the random news shit that I get off the internet, which is where I get most information. There are things going on, like the Dutch government seems to be having troubles. Like the farmers pushing back may have succeeded. Didn't their prime minister just resign? Like that seems like a big deal. Like maybe the people who are supposed to have the power and it's supposed to be the will of the people, that the government carries out anyway. It's possible that after enough years of COVID bullshit and the business is being destroyed and people watching their loved ones die from getting a stupid chemical put in their arm, maybe people are actually uprising, and maybe the Macron government in France is collapsing. Maybe it's real. I would like to think it is, to be honest, although you never know what's going to replace it. It could be worse. One government toppling,
or are
one
they using
leader,
this? Is it real and they're using it to divide us and bring more security measures and take away
well,
more
that's
freedoms?
dude, that is an absolute. They let that shit happen. They let the
They
riots
let that shit
happen.
happen,
Of
and then
course
they
they
use
do.
it against us. I mean,
Of course they do.
maybe it's real. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not or it is. It's just
But
it's
here's the
always used
thing.
against us either way.
In the end, though, there's more of us than there are of them, and you can get. So this is going to be the challenge: getting the enforcers to defect, getting the enforcers to be loyal to their neighbors and not their bosses in government, and that's going to be hard. It's going to take high integrity. It's going to take enforcers that are financially secure that can lose their job, and turn against the organization that has provided for them all those years. That's going to be hard. But I do think it does happen naturally when the money they get paid loses enough of its value, and they see other people using the Bitcoin protocol for their money and not losing their value over a long enough period of time, a generation, maybe two. It'll become really obvious which is the better money. And enforcers are only going to stay loyal if they get paid in the best money. And so if government switches over to use that as their money to pay people, then their powers should significantly limited because they can't make new money out of thin air. And if they don't, the money they are using, their fiat money, will get more and more debased. And eventually it will have so little value that the enforcers will go look for another job, private security out in the world, whatever. And they won't stay loyal to a small group of people in suits and ties who don't stand on the front lines and shoot at other people, who don't feel the effects of inflation, who have armed bodyguards around them wherever they get to go, and they take all those rights away from you. The tables will turn. I would love to be here to watch all the politicians in handcuffs being marched off by those people that just used to be loyal to them, the same guys with the guns. It's what you see when there's a military coup in any country. The military turns on their president and says, we're in charge now. General Smith over here, I'm the new president. Sorry, dude. I got the rockets and I got all these guys behind me that love me and they're going to listen to me. They're my army. That's how it works. I mean, sovereign individual lays it all out. You're only as sovereign as your ability to keep other people away with more force than they can come against you with. It's that simple. And so the government's only dismantled the armies of the world, the police forces of the world that are destroying society by beating up their neighbors for not wearing a stupid face diaper because somebody told them it's dangerous. It's all bullshit. All that goes away under Bitcoin standard. I think private security becomes the norm. I think governments shrink down to small neighborhoods again. Like, I said this somewhere recently, it might have been on Spaces. It took generations, hundreds, if not thousands of years for humanity to get in such a convoluted state that you got these behemoth governments and central banks and a small handful of people controlling the fucking weather because they can fly planes above our heads without our permission and dump chemicals over us because they just can. Because they have the ability to pay all the fucking right people to get all the right fucking permits, which is just all the fucking magic words written by some other motherfucker over there that says, yeah, go ahead and pollute the fucking atmosphere. Because I said you can. Because nobody's coming after me. Because I work for fucking government. I fucking can't stand this shit, dude. I'm sorry I'm cursing so much. But this shit riles me up. I can't stand it.
Well, I want to breeze through then. I don't know what to make of Greta visits Vlad here, Putin. I don't know what to make of this shit. I don't know if you got to take on that.
Pony show all day long. Come on, they're both actors. It's a joke. That girl knows nothing. She's a pawn.
So then,
she gets paid really well too. Apparently,
you brought up defectors and enforcers, and I think about co-option. So, what do you think about all the plays for an ETF here, from BlackRock, Fidelity. I mean, are these good, honest players who now see the value in Bitcoin?
No.
Is there a longer play here? Do you not care?
I think in the long run, they can't do anything to hurt Bitcoin. I think in the short run, they're doing it to make profit. I still think they believe in fiat money. I still think they denominate everything. They don't see Bitcoin as units of money they need to accumulate. They see Bitcoin as an investment that's denominated in dollars that they want to go up in value so they can pay people back with the inflated value of the thing. Right? That's it. It's just another investment play around their mindset of dollars are the currency, or British pounds or Japanese yen. It doesn't matter. I don't think they see Bitcoin as the protocol for money that everybody must adopt. And we need to get as many units of that protocol as possible. Oh, and once we start accumulating them, we will use them as our money. We will spend them for good and service. They're not going to do that. They're just going to pile them up and let them sit there and continue to rise in value. That's all they're going to do. But in the end, in order to pay off investors someday, pension funds, anybody, they have to liquidate something. Every investment portfolio that holds assets, if you're in that portfolio, you own a mutual fund, whatever, you want to cash out, you want your value back in money so you can go on vacation. They have to sell something. Bonds, it doesn't matter, whatever's in their portfolio, they got to sell something. To the extent that the only thing they have left of value is Bitcoin, they will have to sell it one day. If every other asset is useless in their portfolio, or they can't sell it for liquidity reasons or something, they will have to sell Bitcoin, and they can only get it back if other people voluntarily give it to them. So there is no one entity that can ever accumulate so much Bitcoin that they can rule the world, in my opinion. Because in order to rule the world, you have to pay people. And in order to pay them with a limited monetary unit system like Bitcoin, you have to keep bringing in more. And unless people voluntarily give it to you, you can't keep stealing it like you could steal it now. So everything changes on a Bitcoin standard. You can point a gun at people's heads and say, give us your Bitcoin, but it doesn't mean they'll give it. It doesn't, you could time lock it in a way they can't. You can give them the keys and they'll die before it can be spent because it's time locked. There's so many ways you can fuck with Bitcoin to not get it stolen, right? That it just changes the entire incentives. And because nobody can accumulate the vast majority of Bitcoin out there in any easy way. And even a guy like Michael said, 150,000 Bitcoin, it's only as good as his ability to spend it on something and do something with it. And as soon as he spends it, it's gone. He has to accumulate it again by providing goods and services. He has those Bitcoin because he provided goods and services and people paid him in fiat dollars. And then somebody sold him Bitcoin for those fiat dollars. So it's a fair exchange of value in a sense. That's how this works. All Bitcoin is produced because somebody went to work, spent money on electricity, mined some Bitcoin, whatever. We all understand that none of this Bitcoin came into the world for free. Nobody got it for free, essentially, right? Even Satoshi didn't get Bitcoin for free. He had to run a computer and pay his electric bill to bring a Bitcoin that he never even spent. So it just changes everything. I don't know. I end up with these really long answers that I don't even remember what the question was. I just hope it was cohesive to the guy. The next guy is listening a month from now and they think, what is this guy rambling about?
Well, I mean, with everything going on in the world then, so why am I seeing so many reports of reptiles on planes?
I have no idea, dude. That's the trippiest thing when you see this stuff. That girl on the plane, who's now a meme for forever. This woman is going to be a meme. That motherfucker is not real. Whatever she said, man. I didn't know what to make of that when I first saw it. I had no idea what she was even talking about. And then you start reading all the backstory of what she claims she saw, and whoever else says they were on the plane and saw this, that, or the other thing. It's all so funny to watch. The crazy part is it's probably like a niche group of a few thousand people on Twitter that even know what you just asked me about. Like maybe the people listening to this podcast know exactly what we're talking about. Somebody else would be like, what are they talking about? Lizards on planes. So there was the woman, and then there was some other guy who did a little freak out on a plane because somebody near him was some lizard person. They thought, blinking sideways or something like the guy in Men in Black or something. I don't know. It's all hilarious to me. But you can't know. There's too much. The world, look, the universe is too big. Everything is
Mm.
made of energy. Everything is molecules vibrating. It's all electromagnetic energy, and it's all, coordinated in the form of our bodies and the buildings we're in. It's all just energy, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And all entropy will dismantle it all one day. Everything will split apart and just separate one day. The entire world will. It all just keeps, the natural, the natural desire for molecules to mix up and spread apart is never going to stop. So everything breaks down. And so I don't know, what was my point going to be. Shit, see that I went off on my own tangent again. I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Well, let's
Sorry,
go
sorry,
this
Cedric.
way. No
Go ahead.
problem. Let's go this way.
Steer
So
me again.
let's try to pay it forward.
Sure.
So when you think about it, like how do you think about dealing with rejection? What advice would you give to people? I think
Rejection of what? What do you mean?
well, think about it this way. I mean, Bitcoin is a lot about dealing with rejection. Like the way Creatious Jesse Myers puts it is, a lot of people say everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. The way he says it is, everyone gets you buy Bitcoin when you realize or recognize that you were wrong about Bitcoin.
That's a
Because
good
most
way to
people don't
put
buy
it.
Bitcoin at first. They say, "Oh, it's not
Sure.
going to be this, it's not going to be that. You're wrong." This, and you got to recognize you were wrong. You didn't know. You didn't have the answer, and that's a form of rejection in a way. You're not right
Yeah, I
about
guess.
everything. Not everyone accepts you, whatever. I mean, whether it's in, I don't know, you want to talk about career or life or love, like how do you deal with
Rejection
rejection?
generally. Oh, so the broader topic of rejection generally. Well, that's an interesting topic. It's not easy, obviously. Nobody wants to be rejected in love. That sucks. Getting rejected when you're talking to people about Bitcoin is hard at first because you really want to explain the epiphany you've had and they should really see it. And they're so dumb that they don't. And, it's hard because the passion is there. But I have learned to not care about that anymore. I use this phrase out of my lane, which is to say that as someone who builds custom homes, the average person is not going to take financial advice from me. It's that simple. They might listen to me about putting on a new roof, but they don't think that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to something like Bitcoin. And so I'm okay with the rejection at that level. Rejection in general, though, it's a part of life. I mean, not everybody's going to want what you have to offer or believe what you have to say, and you do have to learn to deal with it. I guess luckily, earlier in my working life, I was in the financial services industry, and I'm basically a salesman, and so rejection's part of the job, man. People don't always buy right what you're selling, and you got to learn to figure it out. And minimize it, and you refine your approach so that the rejections come less frequently, right? Because you get better at it, you get more knowledgeable about whatever it is you're doing. And so, running my construction business is the same kind of thing. When they're hiring you, you feel like, you're winning and they love you and you're a hero. And then when you find out they called somebody else and you saw your competitor over at your customer's house doing a job and you're like, huh, what happened to me? Like they just didn't even call me. And that happened to me. That happened to me a bunch of times where I found out one of my old customers was getting a job done and I didn't even get the bid on it. And I thought, holy shit, they didn't even call. What did I do? I thought they liked me. So, that's hard rejection, boy. But, like anything else in life, the more times you have to go through something, I guess the easier it gets if it doesn't kill you. So, I guess my advice would be, get used to rejection and learn how to process it. And it is the way it is. Everybody experiences it, and don't take it personal because they might just be stupid. So maybe that's a good way to look at it. They're just stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. I don't know. It's part of life, right? What are you gonna do?
Sure. Well, what about maybe advice around Bitcoin around dealing with regret and mistakes?
Around
Or
Bitcoin
just in
specifically or
life?
life
Doesn't
in
that
general? Yeah. Okay.
well, we could do life in general, but if you want
Yeah.
to keep it to
Well,
Bitcoin.
around Bitcoin, I mean, the biggest mistake is not owning some. Second biggest mistake is not owning as much as possible. Third biggest mistake is, not learning how to hold on to it correctly and stuff like that, maybe losing it, whatever. Um, I don't know that there's too many other mistakes you can really make. If you just buy and hold Bitcoin for a long enough period of time, it's probably going to be beneficial to your life. So I just leave it at that, right? It should be a positive thing if you start buying some. hold on to it a long enough period of time, it'll probably pay itself back. It'll bring you value that you can use in your future, right? Or pass it along to somebody else. So in life generally, though, um,
Not to
so
insinuate that you have regret and made mistakes, but
no,
if you have advice.
how I don't think anybody my age can look back and say they don't have a single regret. I mean, nobody makes perfect decisions in every last thing, right? I've hurt some people that I loved. I regret that. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't say certain words at certain times. Absolutely. I don't want to hurt people. I'm not a bad person like that, but in my haste, in my anger, in my misunderstanding, I certainly, said and did things that were either hurtful or damaging or any number of things. When I was a kid, I stole things. I thought it was like a challenge, just be able to get away with stealing shit. I mean, I grew out of it. Thankfully, I think it's terrible to steal people's stuff. But as a kid growing up, I didn't have a moral compass really, even though my mom was super honest. I mean, she actually steered me pretty straight. I watched her integrity enough times when no one was looking that I realized what it really meant to have integrity. Like you just do the right thing when nobody even knows. And that's the test. And only you and God really know. And my mom was really good at that. Has to be one of the most honest people I ever was able to hang around with for a length of time where I could see it manifest in so many different ways. She just went out of her way to not cheat anybody, to never lie about anything, to not cut corners on anything. And my father was like the opposite. He literally lost his job because he swindled people. It's so sad. I didn't even talk to him for 30 years, honestly, because he was such an asshole. He screwed my mother over. The whole family just kicked him out and said, go away. We never want to see you again. And then later on, towards the end of his life, he ended up in a nursing home, and through different channels, they got in touch with me, and I was the only one in the family close enough to go and visit him. And so I actually got to spend about a year or so communicating. We found some common ground. I was able to forgive him for being a dick. He admitted he was a dick, and whatever. And he's passed away now, but at least it was kind of a good little closure thing that he and I got to experience with each other. He wasn't a bad guy, especially when I was a kid growing up. He was just a stupid young man who didn't know much, and a young dad. I mean, he had me when he was 21, and he already had a kid. So, and then he went on to have two more. So, in their mid-20s, my parents had four kids. Like, take two mid-20-year-old people and give them four kids and watch how good they do. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but they had heart and they had good intentions. And my father got corrupted later in life by making good money and then wanting to cut corners to make more good money faster. It's unfortunate, but I watched it devolve over his working career from being just a regular young man, just working hard, supporting his family, to being a shyster in his later years, in his 50s. So anyway, so regrets, I mean, generally speaking, it sucks to have them. And I think the best way to avoid it is to live the most honorable life you believe you can live. And even if you come to realize later that you made mistakes, at least if at the time your intentions were good, it's easy not to feel regret. It's those times when you knew you made choices that were bad and you did it anyway. I think those are the ones that would cause anybody the most regret. And I think I guess I happen to be pretty fortunate that I don't have that many things that I could really think of that I have major regret about. Again, the ones that I think would stand out the most would be the ones where I can think back where I definitely hurt somebody I cared about, and I didn't need to, or it was unjust and I feel bad about it. And maybe I never got a chance to apologize or correct it or something like that. And I'm honestly I can't really think of specific events, but I know that I went through the emotional, the mental exercise of having to deal with the feelings of regret in my past. I simply can't remember the specifics about them, but I know what regret feels like because I know I've been there. That may sound a little esoteric, a little bit out there, that I can't even pinpoint an exact moment in time, like, yeah, that thing I regret. But I just know that it had to do with letting people down. I could think of people that are no longer in my life, and I know that that's why, stuff that I did that wasn't really fair.
Yeah, I think it's hard for a lot of people to understand the harm they've caused.
Yeah, it's
But
really
what
hard. You don't want to see it, especially you don't want to believe your actions are ever wrong.
Right.
You know,
But what about?
not a, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say it's not an easy thing to admit that you're wrong. That in of itself is the hardest part. And then, especially if you've hurt somebody, you care about. I can think of regrets in business where I burned a bridge with a customer and realized I was such a dick, man. I wish I didn't piss them off because now I don't have them as a customer. So, that I could look at that as a regret. Luckily, it didn't put me out of business, but that may be a little minor regret compared to like hurting somebody you love, like a family member or a friend. But sorry, you were going to start another question.
I was gonna say, what about forgiveness? Sort of
Oh,
like
that's
with your dad.
critical.
I mean,
If you can't
because
forgive
maybe
somebody, then you're not living life correctly because you have to be able to forgive. Forgiveness. This is a huge lesson for me. Huge. Um, Forgiveness hurts the person that can't forgive. It's like jealous and anger and
it's like eating poison and hoping the other person dies.
yeah, I never heard that analogy, but essentially, when you don't forgive somebody else, it may not seem like it, but you're the one suffering. You're the one holding negative thoughts. If you forgive them, you literally let it go. And I have an absolute like epiphany moment twice in my life that I got to experience this. And it was with two other contractors. So I work, where I work, Fire Island. It's a small area. You get to know all the other workers. And these two other contractors they weren't even competitors. They were both painters. And I'm a contractor, I do entire homes, and involved in that is painting sometimes. But I didn't hire either of these guys. I always knew them, but I just never hired them. And we were still okay. We were okay with the whole thing. And one guy screwed me out of a power washer. I was supposed to buy a power washer from Bob. He went to Bob and convinced Bob to sell it to him. Told Bob I wasn't going to buy it. Bob believed him, sold it to him. I needed a power washer for a job. I all of a sudden didn't have the power washer. I was pissed. I didn't talk to that guy for years. He fucked me, and we were all friends. All three of us were friends. He did it on purpose, and he tried to get away with it. And I found out, and I said, "Fuck you! You're not my friend." And probably 10 years we didn't speak. We saw each other. We had to. We worked in the same area. We constantly saw each other, and we had to look away from each other. And he did it to me. So I was justified, fuck you, for 10 years. Another guy did something stupid that I thought was bullshit. And I did the same thing. Fuck you. You're such a dick. Why did you do that to me? Right. I don't need to get into specifics. In both cases, I couldn't stand the injustice they did to me. And in both cases, for 10 years, I couldn't look at them. I couldn't be in the same group of people as them. I suffered because they fucked me, those people, until I walked up to both of them in separate occasions. The first one was the hardest. The second one was so easy because I saw how I was relieved of the burden when I did it. I walked up to the first guy. We were in a position where it was just me and him looking at each other. He was 5 feet from me. I said, "Hey, Andy." I stuck my hand. I go, can we stop being stupid and enemy? Can we just fucking be friends and just be able to say hi to each other once in a while? He's like, "No problem, dude. I'm so glad you did that." And we both were done. It's been 10 years since then. And I see the guy and we wave and we smiles. It's great. No fucking burden on me simply because I forgave the guy. I honestly forget. I didn't care anymore. I was no longer mad. I was so sick of carrying the burden around. I just walked up and said, "Can we bury the fucking hatchet?" And the guy was like, "Absolutely." And the other guy did the exact same thing. I literally walked up to him. We were going surfing. I saw him changing into his wetsuit at the parking lot. I was in mine. I was ready to walk out on the beach. I walked over. "Kevin, can I talk to you for a second?" He's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he was shocked. He's like, "You're talking to me?" Like, whoa. And he knew why I would never talk to him because he knew what he did to me. But I still forgave him. And he was like, and we're actually good friends. Like, we talk to each other regularly now. I tried to get him to buy Bitcoin not too long ago, and he just doesn't get it. Maybe he doesn't trust me. I don't know. But dude, forgiveness is so critical. I'm glad you brought it up because I had two really big moments in my life where it made a huge difference, where I finally understood what forgiveness really is about. It relieves the burden off of you. It doesn't do anything for the other guy necessarily. But boy, what a difference it makes in your own life if you can forgive somebody that hurt you or wronged you that you believe. And you just let it go, man. It's so much better. Not easy though.
What about forgiving yourself?
That's another one. To me, that's a little easier because, I know everything that went into all the decisions that I had to make the mistake in the first place and how I justified whatever it is that I'm trying to forgive myself of. So the hardest thing to forgive yourself of is when you've wronged somebody you care about, when you hurt your family or your wife or your girlfriend or something like that, and you were a dick, and they've forgiven you and you still beat yourself up over it because you don't know, like there's a few levels. Maybe you're not sure they actually forgave you. Maybe you just feel so bad because you know how much it really did hurt them, even though they're no longer suffering. That's a tough one. I think that's the hardest one. If you have to forgive yourself, to me, the hardest one is when you've hurt somebody else that you didn't want to hurt. When you've only messed your own life up, I don't know. I just move on. I'm just like, you're a dick. Why'd you do that? You dumb. Don't do that again. Learn from your mistakes and move on. Like, I don't even think of it as having to forgive myself when the only one that ever suffered from my choices was me. So I hope that makes sense. That's just the way I intuitively envision that, answering the question as you asked it.
Sure. Before we roll out, I'm going to read our first couple interactions on Twitter DMs.
Mine and yours?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't remember, but
so I was like, "Hi, Surfer Jim. I hope you're well. I'm doing a Bitcoin podcast and really think you'd make a great guest. Please let me know if you're interested in making it happen. Kind regards, said." And you were like, "As long as we don't have to talk about shit coins and crypto." Absolutely.
Good. So, all right.
I could talk about Bitcoin for days. Hope you have some free time. Make sure you take a bathroom break first. Just let me know when and how.
Did I say that?
Invite. Yeah.
I told you to take a bathroom break. That's funny.
So I'm like, okay, thanks. It's a Bitcoin, not shitcoin show. How about, this date? We use Google Meets. And if you don't get sick of me by then, sounds fine. I'll put it on my calendar and learn how to use Google's platform. I'm in New York, so 9 p.m. for me works well. Okay. Just so you know, I agreed because you seem to tweet reasonable stuff.
Oh, man. I'm sorry if I was like being a little hard on you there, but
haven't heard your show. Send me some links. I prefer to use YouTube because I can listen at 2x. If I have to use another app, let me know. I'll try to keep the number of apps I have to download to a minimum. So I never downloaded any of the popular ones.
It's true. I still haven't. I don't have Spotify on my phone. I don't have Google Play or any of those other things, whatever other apps. I listen mostly on YouTube. I always have, and it's just easy for me.
Yeah, and then we went back and forth a little bit on time, and I'd find out that you get sleepy a little later in the evening. But we finally worked it out.
Oh, dude, that's so funny. Now I know why, before we started recording, what you were talking about when we first connected. I didn't realize I was being so what's the word? Narrow-minded? No. Specific, like, I don't know, like, yeah, as long as it's not going to be shit.
I took it as finicky.
Finicky is a good word.
Trying
sure,
to
why not?
Trying to weed out, the idiots or whatever.
Well, look, I guess I didn't know who you were. I probably hadn't heard of any of
your
podcasts,
I wasn't
and I
anybody.
had no idea.
I had like 2,000 followers, 1,000 followers.
Well, look, it's interesting, right? Over the years, and they just keep piling up, and you're like, where do they all come from? Why are these people? That's what I say. Like, every time somebody else follows me, I'm like, I don't know what they see in following me, but okay, I'll just try to keep being who I am. And if they like it, great. I'm this regular guy that was not known by anybody a few years ago. And now there's a bunch of people that follow me on Twitter. And I know a bunch of people in the Bitcoin ecosystem around the world. And I'm really into Bitcoin and I have a lot of shit to say. Oh, and I'll say it this way, Cedric. I think I've said this to you before. I got 62 years of shit piled up in my brain, right? Information, observations, lessons of all different kinds. And I could take all of that to the grave, or I could spit as much of it back out every minute of every day, whatever I can think of that may just help another person to see it a little differently, to take a different approach, to maybe consider a different paradigm on something they never considered before. And if just one person or anytime I speak, somebody gets something out of it or whatever. I mean, maybe that's a lofty goal, but whatever. I want the value that I've accumulated in my brain to be worth it to other people. So I got to get it back out. So by you letting me come on here and just spew out hours worth of shit that somebody might pick out even one little morsel that helps them, then it's worth it. And I don't know, man. It's like, I think about this, the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and what people go through regarding how they view their lives and what gives them meaning. And he breaks it down using 4 words that start with the word L. And Stephen Covey, the author, he puts it this way: we have these motivations that move us, which is, at first, we need to live. The first word he uses is live, which is general sustenance. We have to find food, clothing, and shelter. And once we have that, once we have to live, we can move on to higher needs. And he would say the next one is to love, which is to build relationships. So once we're secure in ourselves, then we care to interact with other humans. Once you have those 2 things covered and you feel comfortable with that, the natural progression of your natural curiosity is to learn about the world around you. You now have 2 basic human needs figured out: food, clothing, and shelter, and love and companionship. And now it's like, well, what does the rest of this life actually mean? So you start to learn. So to live, to love, and to learn are the first 3. But once you start to learn, you start to get this really broad perspective of the world. It's like, what does my life even matter? What am I even here for? Am I going to contribute anything that's lasting at all? And so you begin to think about perhaps leaving a legacy. And that's the 4th one. So to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy. If you care about anything, you're going to want to leave a legacy of value, of some kind of value, that somebody after you might get something out of it. And so you and I are putting out these podcasts. They could last for 100 years. Somebody might listen to this sometime in the future. And some of it is generic knowledge that is good forever. And other is very specific knowledge that's only good for right now, or for something having to do with Bitcoin or whatever. And so, but in general, if we live lives that we leave a decent enough legacy, then our lives we might be able to someday feel, maybe looking down from heaven, that it wasn't a waste. Maybe God will honor us that we didn't waste our time because we made something worthy of it. And I think many people do get to that point where they literally just want to give back. They don't want to take anymore. They don't need to take anymore. They've made enough money. They've made enough friends. They've gone enough places. They simply want to improve somebody else's life. They literally want to just help. And I think that's a noble approach to life. I think, and I think that's what I'm trying to do here, a sense, is just put back out there into the world whatever little bit of wisdom or knowledge I might have accumulated that somebody else could benefit by. Even though they might be able to get the same information somewhere else, they're hearing me talk, if they are in fact listening to this podcast, whether it's tomorrow or next month, then they might have just gotten it from me. And great, and I don't need credit, and I probably never get credit from many of the people whose lives I might actually touch, right? Because it's not how life works. But many of the people who've touched my life will never know that they did. Some of them are already dead, and I've read their books, right? So like, this is about, I don't know, it's probably our highest calling, is to make something of our lives, to leave a good legacy that's got some value, that even 100 years from now, nobody that ever knew you personally could look and go, that was a cool dude. He was a nice person, seemed like a nice person. Look at what he gave us, And we could look back in history at some of those people that we already know that gave us really good stuff, really important stuff. And then others who left a legacy of evil. We remember some of those people too, but that's not how I want to be remembered, that's for sure. So I'm trying for the good stuff, Cedric.
I hear you.
Hopefully this is some good stuff, this podcast, and I appreciate you having me on for sure.
Well, I know it is, and I really appreciate you coming back for the 5th time. This has been tremendous as always, and so dope. I'll leave it to you for any parting words to let people know where they can find you.
Haven't I said enough? I can't believe, if anybody's still listening to this, they got a lot of patience. I can't believe somebody would listen to me for a couple hours talking, because that's how long we've been doing this. But yeah, anybody who wants to find me, I'm just, the only place really is on Twitter at SurferJimW. So my DMs are open if you want to talk. Oh, we do a Tuesday night spaces, me and Gary Leland and Lynn B. He has it called the Bid Block Boom Spaces. We're also doing the Bid Block Boom Conference in August. Everybody should come to it because it's a great conference. I'll be there. And yeah, that's it. Find me on Twitter and let's talk, or come on Spaces. Oh, and also I got to shout out Anders and Puppy that do Toxic Happy Hour every weekday at 2 p.m. on Twitter Spaces. I go on there and chat with those guys a lot. That's a really great hangout. Real social, relaxing. We talk about Bitcoin a lot, but it's There's no agenda, man. It's like they call it toxic happy hour because it's like you're at the pub hanging out with your friends. So come join us there. You can find me there a lot. So you should come, Cedric. Come hang out with us.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to. I'm usually
Usually
working during the day, doing the day
2:00.
career.
Yeah, it's tough. I got it. All right. Well, look, thank you for doing this, dude. I hope your audience likes it. And anybody out there that's listening, if you have a question or a comment, send me a DM. I respond to everybody.
Thank you so much, Surfer Jim. This was so dope.
You got it, bro. Thank you.
Yo, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Bitcoin Matrix podcast with special guest Surfer Jim. We hope you found it informative and engaging. I'd like to take a moment to thank our listeners for tuning in and supporting us. I couldn't do it without you. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Bitcoin Matrix podcast with Tom Luongo.